Hello everybody, Todd here, all things archery and shooting, and today I've got another traditional bow comparison for you. Today we're going to be comparing a 1967 vintage Grizzly bow. This bow has got AMO of 58 inches and a draw weight of 44 pounds at my draw length, compared to a 2022 Gainesville bow with the same 58-inch AMO, with the same draw weight of 44 pounds at my draw length, okay? This bow is made in Grayling, Michigan. It just belonged to my father. I've done a review on this bow before. It's a pretty nice bow. It's got the brown glass on the front and the back. My dad did drill it for a sight back in the day. I took the sight off and filled the holes in with epoxy. But the bow is 44 pounds at my draw length. It's a 58-inch AMO, uses a B55 Flemish twist string on it. And I've shot this bow for years, so it's really good. We're going to compare this bow to another bow, which is a 2022 Bear Grizzly. This one here is also an AMO of 58 inches and comes in right at about 44 pounds at my draw length, same as this bow. Also uses a B50 Flemish twist string on it. These bows are basically identical. Bear hasn't changed these bows since 1964. Once he mastered this bow in 64, nothing's really changed on it except minor things, which we'll talk about and go into detail here in a minute, okay? But I can tell you about both bows. They're both 58 inches long. The 1967 vintage bow is made out of rosewood, okay? And the 2022 bow is made out of Shadoa wood, okay? They both have reinforced tips. On the tips on this one are a little bit not quite as reinforced as, say, the ivory tip ones, which are here, which are much more. You can see the difference there between the two bows on the tips. Okay, let me get a close-up. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's start a close-up look at the tips on these. There's a big difference in the tips in the manufacture of these bows from the early 60s. First, let's look at the tips, okay? So you can see the tips are reinforced. They are tapered, same as the newer one, but they're a much thicker, heavier duty tip with these tip overlays on them, okay? Also, if you can see in here, this has two layers of maple inside there, 2 layers worth, and it's backed with brown glass on the back and the belly of the bow, okay? Now let's look at the new 2022 Grizzly, okay? The 2022 Grizzly has a much thinner tip on it than compared to this one. As you can see, let's compare the two together. As you can see, the 2022 Grizzly on the bottom there is much thinner than the one on the top, which is the 67, okay? It still has the same taper to it, has the same taper right here. Okay, what's unique, it doesn't have much of a reinforcement. It's very little reinforcement there. And both of these bows Bear says to use B50 Dacron string on them, okay? Here's the biggest difference you'll notice. There is only one laminate of maple in this compared to 2 laminates of maple in the 67 model. The newer Super Grizzlies now have 2 layers of maple in them now, but the standard Grizzly now only comes with 1 layer of maple, all right? Has black glass on the back and the belly of the bow. Also, the new Grizzly has your ATA marks, so you can do a side mount quiver. Of course, they all have the Bear medallion in them. This one's made out of Shadoa wood. Uses a B50 Dacron. As you can see, the silk screening is on the back side of the bow, or the belly of the bow, as they say. Okay, the back of the bow here. You see the silk screening on the back of the bow. And then you look at the silk screening on the newer model. It's on the belly of the bow and the back of the bow. Okay. Again, this one's also, if you notice the limb thickness between the two, the older Grizzly has a much thicker limb on it. It's a little bit thicker limb on there as well. All right. So we'll get a micrometer and check it out on that. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the sight windows. Sight windows are the same. They're the same height sight window. They both use a Bear rest with a radius shelf on them. There's your silk screen. We'll talk about the bow there. Same thing, radius shelf, which is way before its time in 67. Same size sight window, and again, there's your information. I prefer the way they wrote it back then, much bigger letters than these little bitty gold ones now that you really can't see. I prefer the larger writing on it, okay? We're going to come up to the top of the bow. Again, they're much larger tips on there. They both use a B50 Dacron Flemish twist string, okay? All right. Okay, I got both of these strung up. I'm going to check the brace side of both, make sure they're the same. Okay. Both come in right 8 1/4 inches, which falls within that ratio, which I'm looking, I get that from the Bear. You get one of these Bear cards here. These come with most of your Bear bows. These owner manual, like traditional bow owner's manual. On the very bottom, it tells you what your proper brace height should be for each of these. For the Grizzly, it says proper brace height is between 7.5 and 8.5. These are both coming in at 8.25 inches, okay? So the brace height's the same. Now I'm going to check it at my draw length with my handheld draw gauge. So measure at my particular draw length, which is about 29.5 inches, okay? First we'll check the Shadoa 2022 model. Okay, good. Those are Grizzly are so smooth. Okay, that one comes in right at 46 pounds, okay? Remember, this bow is supposed to be rated at 43 according to the number on the back of this plate, but we'll check that on my draw gauge in a minute. Now let's check this one at my draw length, okay? My draw length, this one here. Okay. This one here comes in at, how about that, 47 pounds. 1 pound heavier this bow is compared to this one, all right? So, which makes sense, both about a pound apart. So let me go in the back now. I'll check these on my tiller machine at 28 inches, see if they come in at 28 inches. I'll be right back. Okay, that was quite interesting. I checked both of these on my tiller machine. The 1967 model, all right? It is coming in right at 43.6 pounds, which is pretty close to the 44 pounds it's rated here, okay? That's at 28 inches. This one, however, checked on my draw machine, comes in, right at 43.05 pounds at 28 inches. So they are very, very close, within a half a pound of each other, okay? All right. Now what we're going to do, we're going to take these two fine bows and we're going to head out to the range and we're going to put them both on a head-to-head test on the range and see how they perform shooting-wise, how quiet they are, how fast they shoot, and just get an overall view and see how the 1967 vintage model stacks up against the new 2022 model. Remember, these bows have not changed much since 1964. Very little have changed on these bows, except for the minor things like the single maple laminate instead of the double maple, like this has 2, this has 1, and the smaller limited. Otherwise, these are built on the same machines that they used back in the 60s to build these, so they're all the same. There's not, if you look at the two bows, they're almost like, they're identical. If you look at the two together, you can see there, there's not much difference in them. The older bow does have a larger sight window, which I found quite interesting. This has a smaller sight window. This has a larger sight window. And if you measure it with a tape measure, this sight window comes in right at 3 3/4 inches, and this one comes in at 4.5 inches, so about 3/4 inch larger sight window, which I thought was interesting. I prefer a larger sight window myself. Easier for snap shooting like I do. If you put the lid underneath, they have, you can definitely see that the newer model has more of a swept design on the recurve than compared to this model, all right? I can get you a picture of that. You can see both those together, how much of a difference of the swept they are, but if you can see that, the newer one has more of a swept design than the older model. What I mean by that is, it comes back more around toward the front than this one does. This one's kind of pointing that way, and this one here, when you shoot, is kind of pointing up. So it has more of a swept wrong. So that should pick up a little bit more speed, even though it's a single layer of maple compared. But I'll be curious to see how fast they shoot next to each other. We'll be shooting these. So I'm not going to compare a bunch of arrows. We're going to compare one arrow, which would be a 450 grain, 500 spine carbon arrow. We're going to shoot through both of these. And what I'll do is I'll shoot 6 through each one and see how fast they are. Then I'll do a target practice on each one. 500 spines should be good for this bow weight, especially my 30.5 inch arrow. This should be fine. They come in. The arrows we'll be shooting are they're carbon. They're 455 grains to be exact. So they're almost about 10 grains per pound of draw weight with these bows here. So let's head out to the range, put this on the range, see how it shoots, see how accurate they are, see which one shoots better. I'll be curious to find out. Okay, guys, I'll see you on the range in a sec. Ciao. Okay, everybody, tell you all things archery shooting. That way we're going to do part 2 of this review on these comparison of the vintage 1967 Bear Grizzly in my left hand and the 2022 Bear Grizzly in my right. Both of these bows are within 1 pound of draw weight of each other. So it should be an interesting test on the range here. Now the older bow does have 2 layers of maple in it, while the newer model only has one maple laminate compared to 2 maple laminates in the older one. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect points. We're going to find out here in a minute. But otherwise, the bows are pretty much identical. Let's go and get started shooting. We'll put 6 arrows across this chronograph. First arrow I'm going to shoot is going to be these here. These are actually 455 grain arrows. Okay, these are a carbon arrow. All right. They have a 100 grain point on the front of them. And then we're also going to run these 650 grain hunting shafts across there, just to see how they do all these lighter weight grizzly bows. This is 650 grain, has a 125 grain brass insert with a 150 grain point up front. So I've got 275 grains up front plus the shaft, total of 650 grains. Let's see how these bows do. Let's start with the 1967 model first, and we'll run it across the chronograph. Here we go. Okay, first is going to be the 1967 Bear Grizzly, and next is going to be with the 450 grain shaft. 6 arrows. Here we go. First arrow. .172. Second arrow. .167. Third arrow. .157. Fourth arrow. .163. Fifth arrow. .165. Sixth and final arrow. .166. Okay, now we're going to shoot this same bow with the heavyweight 650 grain shafts. Okay, 67 Grizzly, 650 grain shafts. See how that works out. First arrow. Here we go. Reset this. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 650 grain shaft out of the 1967 Grizzly. First arrow. 146. Second arrow. 143. Third arrow. 137. Fourth arrow. 144. Fifth arrow. 144. Sixth and final arrow. 146. Okay, we're going to start with the 2022 Bear Grizzly now, shooting the same 450 grain shafts. First arrow. 168. Second arrow. 169. Third arrow. 161. Fourth arrow. 166. Fifth arrow, 161. Sixth and final arrow, 160. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. Let's reset this. Same 2022 Bear Grizzly, this time the 650 grain shafts. Here we go. First arrow, 142. Second arrow, 148. Third arrow, 144. Fourth arrow, 140. Fifth arrow, 140. Sixth and final arrow, 147. I'm going to shoot one more. It looks like I only scored 5. Must have been score one. Let's try shoot one more last one. This will be the sixth arrow. Sixth arrow, 144. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and step off 20 yards. And I'm going to put 5 arrows from each bow into this target here. First we'll use the 1967, then I'll switch it out and we'll put 5 more for the 2022. Let's see how it does. We'll start with the 1967 first, 20 yards. Okay, here we go. Okay, 20 yards. All right. Man, that's a pretty darn tight grill. I was aiming here. I'm using a tape measure. I want to compare the two right way. So we're going to go center to center. That's a 2-inch group, guys, at 20 yards. If you throw out the flyer. If I add the flyer into it, it's still 3.5 inches at 20 yards. Okay? Now let's try the 2022 model. In all fairness now, I have shot this bow a lot, so I'm much more accurate with it probably. But let's just see how the 2022 compares. All right, aiming for the same spot, 20 yards. Here we go. Okay. All right, here we go. This shot's a little bit higher, I thought, than the other one. The one shot lower, this one shoots higher. So I've got, if you compare all five, the widest point of the two, looks like it's got to beat 3 inches by a ½ inch. 3-inch group at 20 yards. The three touching each other are the same 2 inches, but the overall, if you consider all the outliers, it's a total of 3 inches at 20 yards. But the other 67 shot, what, 3½ inches at 20 yards? So looks like that bow won in the accuracy department. So it looks like we've got, I think this bow is a little bit better accurate wise, and the other bow is a little bit faster. So far it's been like a dead heat. Okay, now we're going to do my 3-on-3. Well, basically what my 3-on-3 is, I've got triple 3D targets over there. I've got a chipmunk, I'm sorry, not a chipmunk. I've got a rabbit, a bobcat, and a bear over there. So we're going to shoot 1 arrow on each target and see how close we get to the bull. We'll shoot the 1967 first. Okay. This is going to be my 3-on-3. We're going to put one target, 1 arrow here, 1 arrow here, 1 arrow here. Aiming for the spot, aim for here, and aim for there. 20 yards, here we go. Okay, this is 3-on-3. Let's go ahead and score. These are 3D targets, so the first one's going to score a 9. That's a 9 shot. Second one is also a 9, just breaking the line of 9, so we'll consider that a 9 as well. Third one, same thing, 9. So I got 3 9s on these 3D targets. 1967. Now let's try it with the 2022. Okay, same shoot, 3 arrows, 3 targets. Here we go, 20 yards. Okay, that's a pretty close shoot there. Okay, this one is definitely a 10. It's breaking the line of the 10. There's 10 there. This one here is your 9 ring outside here. It's right in the 9 ring, so this is 9. Same thing here. Here's your 9 ring. Right here, 8 ring, 9 ring. It's right breaking the line of the 9, so this is also a 9. So it looks like the newer bows is a little bit more accurate. Not much. Looks like the newer bow is just a little bit more accurate. So I got 3 9s with the 67, a 10, 9, 9 with the 2022. Okay, let's go ahead and get some shots of me. So you check the tilter of the bow, and we'll on both say I'll both pull back and bend and see how they look. All right, here we go. Okay, first one's going to be my 1967. Let's go get a good shot on the bow tillers and bow bends. Okay, now let's do the 2022. All right, 2022. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, I'm not going to go do like I normally do my grading scale on these like I normally do. I'm just going to finish up talking about it here. As you can see, both these bows perform quite well. I got to say that we'll look at there'll be a card there in the video how fast each bow was. I do believe that the 67 might have been 1 or 2 feet a second faster. That could be because it's a pound heavier. Also because it could be it's a double laminate of maple instead of a single like the newer one is. But I mean, performance-wise, they're both identical. And I mean, speed-wise. The older bow is just a little bit more quieter than this one, I think. Not a lot, but I can notice a little bit of difference in how much quieter this one is. So that's a win for the 67. So we got a win for the 67 on the velocity and a win on the 67 for the quietness. Overall shootability of the bow, I gotta say they both shoot really well. I mean, I've been giving them, they're both gonna be tied up. I'm gonna give them both the same rating on shootability. So they're both gonna be the same, be a tie on that. Accuracy wise though, I think the newer bow here is a much more accurate bow. Not much, but a little bit more accurate. I mean, I got like a 3-inch group compared of this bow at 20 yards compared to a 3.5 with this one. And I got a score of 28 on my 3 shots of my 3D target with this bow, and I got a score of 27 on this bow. So this wins on the 2 accuracy shots. So both bows right now, this one won on the quietness and the speed, and it tied on the shootability. This one tied on the shootability and won on both accuracy targets. So basically they're identical, they're the same. And that says a lot about Bear's products here. You understand, this bow was made in 1967, okay? Do the math how many years that is. You're looking 67, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017. This bow is 55 years old, okay? And it's still shooting just like the day it came out of the factory. That's a big testament to Bear Archery and their product. I don't know many products out there that you could buy from 50 years ago that still perform as well as they did when they left the factory. Like I said, my dad used this bow for years and hunted with it, and I've shot with this bow for years too. This bow's probably got thousands upon thousands of rounds shot through it. This newer bow, I mean, quality-wise, they're both the same. I mean, they both shot. I mean, if I had to choose which one, if I had to really make a choice, I'd probably stick to my dad just because of sentimental value. But honestly, you can't go wrong with the newer Grizzly. It shoots smooth. They're both super smooth. They're both really smooth shooting. There's not a lot of hand shock in them at all. They don't bang around anything like that. So I mean, they're both great bows. Let's head inside and wrap this up. Do a final talk about these 2 bows, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up and call it a day. And I'll get this posted for you. Okay. All right. So what you think of that comparison video of the 1967 Bear Grizzly compared to the 2022 Bear Grizzly? Well, I mean, they're really both they shot almost identical, which they should. They're both basically the same bow, same weight, same draw length, same everything. But it's just amazing how a bow that's more than 50 years old, almost 60 years old, can actually still compete with a brand new production bow. So it just goes to show you, I mean, Bear makes an outstanding product. They always have, and they always will, I hope. And it just goes to show you don't got to spend a lot of money or a lot of time to get one of the expensive bows. You can find some of these secondhand bows and they're just as good as these brand new ones. This bow, like I said, is belonging to my dad's. I've had it for a lot of years. I'll never get rid of this bow, but I mean, it's a 1967 and it held its own neck and neck with the 2022. So the winner of this head-to-head competition by not much is the 2022 Bear Grizzly. Alright guys, if you have any comments, leave them down below for me, and I appreciate you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. By the way, this video is done for Matt. You know who you are. You sent me a request to do a comparison on a vintage Grizzly with a newer manufactured Grizzly, comparing the Grayling, Michigan to the Gainesville one. So Matt, there you go. Got it done for you. Any guys want any special requests for me, drop me a comment. If I can do it, I'll be glad to do it. I'll give you a shout out in my videos. I also want to give a big shout out again to Jared over at the Bear Archery Pro Shop. And also all them folks over at Bear Archery. They just built an outstanding bow. Thank you guys. Thanks for everything. And I appreciate all the work you guys put into building these things, because they really do those bows right over at Bear Archery. All right, well, this has been Todd at All Things Archery and Shooting. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please click that subscription button. And also click that bell icon next to the subscription button that can notify you of upcoming videos. And give me a thumbs up on these videos, please. Those thumbs up really help me a lot. So again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and until next time, y'all, ciao.
Benito?
Benito.